So what's my answer? A serious effort to create national programs and state programs and local programs of living wage jobs. Should be led by government, but private industry. I challenge those 57 billionaires in New York and the rest of the 400 to spend more of their money on creating jobs, living wage jobs. I believe people should have a vacation home or a second vacation home as a reward for hard work and good luck, but if they pay their workers so little they can't feed their own families, do they need that 8th vacation home? So if you don't believe that it needs government, and I'll just aside, and then I'll wrap up in just a minute, and say that, you know, every religious tradition makes fighting hunger a centerpiece. It's in the Quran, it's in the Old Testament. I'm Jewish, I grew up knowing mostly the Old Testament. You know Leviticus and Numbers, Leviticus and Deuteronomy command people to give a certain percentage of what they get from their fields. It isn't voluntary, it isn't charity, it doesn't say think about it if you're feeling it's a good day, it says you must. And I think many of you know Matthew 25 in the New Testament. I must say, if there's ever a passage that's like a good recruitment tool for someone who grew up in another tradition, you're saying, boy, that's an impressive theology. When you say, when the Lord said, you feed me, when you fed me, you feed the least of me, Matthew 25. Or when you fail to feed me, you fail to feed the least of me. Now you can argue, and it's a fair argument whether he meant government or not, and maybe, maybe not, but he did say if you don't do it, it's as good as you refusing food to the Son of God. And let me just say, we're not doing it in America today with 49 million people food insecure, with 1 out of 7 people in Colorado food insecure. So living wage jobs, as a moral issue and as an economic issue. Henry Ford, no great left-winger, understood that you needed to pay your workers enough to buy the goods and services you produce. 2, a serious safety net. Goodness forbid, let's stop treating poor people like criminals because they need benefits, our tax dollars, and their tax dollars, because poor people work, poor people pay taxes, poor people pay income taxes, even when they're not paying income taxes, they pay payroll taxes, they certainly pay sales taxes. Stop treating them as criminals. Let's have one big program where you have one application. You can combine it with the earned income tax credit. Let's not need 50,000 levels of bureaucracy to say you get the benefit you've already earned. In-classroom breakfast for every kid. In-classroom breakfast for every kid. You know, kids below 130% of the poverty line get free. Between 130% of the poverty line and 185% get reduced price. A penny above that, you got to pay full price, but it's not really full price because the government's subsidizing it. We spend billions of dollars a year to collect those forms in school, classrooms, in central offices, in the principal's office, in the central school district, at the State Department of Education. Billions of dollars to make sure that a family making $21,000 a year, making that number, God forbid, doesn't get a reduced price meal when they should pay a little more for it. I played extraordinarily mediocre JV soccer. I mean, really bad. I rode the bench. Really bad. And yet, I got a free uniform from my school district. They didn't ask my family's income. They didn't ask my family's income before I got lab equipment. Why in the world, food, an essential tool of education, we built a multi-billion-dollar bureaucracy to make sure that we micromanage who gets what is insane. That I think most of us can agree on, saving money while feeding more kids. And lastly, we need more community food security. We need more community gardens. We need more urban farms. We need more community-supported agriculture. We need to make sure those prices are affordable for poor people. But I tell my foodie friends that is not the one and only answer to this problem. That's a nice addition, and my organization supports it. But unless you have wages and a safety net, that's not going to solve this problem. I'll just close with this. We used to have some horrible problems in this country that we thought were just, that's how it is. This is just how it is. We used to have slavery. Before Colorado came into the Union, even in my home state of New York, we had slavery, even though it outlawed it before the South. Even after it was outlawed in New York, you could escape from the South to New York and be brought back like an animal to the South under federal law. This was just how it is. You just have to accept it. It's inevitable. The Supreme Court, the ultimate arbiter of justice, ruled that Dred Scott wasn't a human being. He was a piece of property. Do we have slavery anymore? No. We said what we used to think was inevitable is now unthinkable. It's barbaric. And we rose up as a country and said, we're not going to accept that. More recently, we had child labor. You know what breaker boys were in the anthracite coal mines in the East? They had little boys, 6, 8 years old, who were picked because of their nimble little fingers. They would go into the coal mines, they would take out the coal, they'd lose fingers, they'd lose arms, they'd die of black lung in their teens for dollars a year. Child labor was seen as so inevitable that the Supreme Court didn't rule just once, twice, that the United States Congress did not have the power to ban child labor. Now it's unthinkable. Let me suggest we need to do the same thing with hunger. We know what works. We know what reduced it in the past. We know what almost ended in the past. We know that every single religious tradition on the planet unites this. We know every theme that unites us as a community, as a nation, strengthening families, strengthening communities, rewarding work, believing in education. None of those things can work unless this country is nourished. This has become a political issue, but it doesn't need to be a partisan issue. We need to unite the country around saying there were things that were once inevitable that are now unthinkable. The idea that 50 million of our neighbors, 17 million American children live in households that can't afford enough food in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. I want you to work with all of us to build the movement necessary to say hunger in America will once again become unthinkable. Thank you.